All right. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Jack. Welcome back to my favorite time of the week. And just a update. I wanted to say thank you for people who are watching. I got a wonderful note from a friend. So hopefully we'll get more friends that just want to say they're watching, and we really appreciate it. And honestly, it means the world to me that someone would spend their time with us, right? I mean,
Yeah,
well, we would have them join us, but it's one of those things. We're just we're in the habit now, right, Jack?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, this kind of becomes kind of like a weekly kind of conversation, habitual kind of, I mean, you installed a habit after 3 months, apparently, right? So the
I think so.
behavioral
Yeah.
scientists say that. Yeah.
And we're almost at a year, I think, pretty much,
More or less.
for weird, I guess. I mean, we certainly don't have any lack of episodes. I know we've spoken for more than years, and probably all the good stuff we never recorded. See, that's
Yeah.
the thing. I just want to go back and mine all this content at one point to say that
Mm.
we predicted everything. That's
Yeah,
that's all I'm here for, right? It's like,
exactly.
told you in episode 3, we predicted. But thank you for anyone watching it. And we do, I know it's a YouTube trope, but if you do have questions or something that you'd like us to tackle, we'd love to hear it. I mean, just write them, say, hey, what about this? Fine with me. And I do read them, and I think it's great. So please, that's really gratifying. And number 2, I got corrected because as usual, I can kind of have an idea and it not be completely correct. So the Socratic method
Mm.
The Socratic method is not me asking a lot of questions. It's the other way around. It's someone asking you questions and you're supposed to respond. And then I thought, oh, that would make sense. That would be harder. So forgive me for giving that GPT some sort of magic, because it definitely does not ask me many questions. In fact, it's still convincing me that my theories on the universe are correct, which all my papers
Yeah.
were rejected. Thankfully, learned my lesson, which is apparently redoing the fabric of the universe is not a trivial thing. You can just do that in your spare time. So,
Mm.
oh well. But it's still fun. I will say that. It's as much fun as, by the way, hopefully you going to House on the Rock with your
Yeah.
family. Are you getting your trip together?
Yeah, we are planning. We just kind of waited for a little bit of a less humid weather.
It's
So
the perfect time. Perfect
yeah,
time. Actually, yeah, a little crispness in the air. It's Wisconsin after all, so it's a little cooler. But yeah, this is the prime time. Really good time to go because everything will be open,
mm.
and can't wait to see what you think. Some good
But
stuff.
really, my primary objective was to go to the Taliesin and
Yeah,
see.
you can do both.
Yeah,
Well, just not in the same day. Well, as I said, I did Taliesin and then House on the Rock in the same day, but I stayed overnight. So that
mm.
was my only thing. But I do recommend the House on the Rock Inn only because they give you tickets to House on the Rock when you get, or at least they used to when you get a hotel room there. And they have a really fun water park inside it.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm fighting really very strongly to kind of like follow your instructions and not to look them up, so that it's more
no,
surprising.
please, no, please don't, no. But just give yourself plenty of time. Plenty of
Mm.
time. That's all I recommend. But yeah, no, it's perfect time of year. I'm almost tempted to go with you now.
All right, yeah, we
Anyway,
can coordinate. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I actually somebody had a House on the Rock beer cozy at the concert we went to last week, and I was like, oh yeah, House on the Rock, love it, love it. So branding is good. So we've got a lot this week that I'd love your input in, and I did send this to you. Did you get a chance to look at this paper?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
But I'm gonna let you drive this because there's like 10 meetings you know in that
Yes,
material.
it's packed. Well, Well, let's do two things because we do want to promote before we get started. So we're excited about August 27th, I think. We're going to do agentic AI in our Northwestern debut as a team. I was also thinking I have a good friend who is another designer who also does a lot of stuff with AI, and I might ask him if he would join us too, just for fun. I don't know. I've never done. Doesn't seem to hurt that we just improv, but when it comes to agentic AI, I did look at this thing, and I'm curious because this made sense except when it didn't make sense. So here's a course that says. But it's a course syllabi, and it says, by the end of this course, you're going to be able to examine core concept of AI agent design, review the principles behind reasoned and act methods, intelligent prompting, finite state machines, and agent architectures for creating effective AI agents.
Yeah.
Those are words. I mean, although I'm just every time when it comes, at least for me, the idea of teaching AI seems problematic, and I could use your help, right? Because when you teach something, you're hopefully have in some mind, like let's say I wanted to teach state machines or states at all, because I actually just wrote a big article where I said states, like what else is there in life other than state management, right? So state management in itself is a fascinating concept that I could probably do a lot on. And I don't know that I'd teach it though, because that's what's so weird, because state mechanics, as we get into these nested trees, right? Like it's the problem with state mechanics. I mean, it's almost, do you see my self-referential humor here?
Yeah.
You know, like how do you teach something which in itself is about state mechanics, right? Like you'd have to know that everyone's going to reach a different node in your state, and then you'd have to model based on that state. I mean, as I said, even state mechanics when it comes to memory management is probably our first gotcha when it comes to computing, which no one on earth would ever want to deal with, right? Except the people who were there in the beginning who had to figure out memory, and they probably still don't understand memory management because it's just, oh, I don't need this memory anymore.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard. And I don't know, do you have anything to get me off the ledge on just that statement? Because I was like, you could mention what it is, but learning state mechanics is kind of why LLMs are so magical, I thought, because you don't have to.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, so this description sounded like it was taken from a textbook that is like 40 years old.
Maybe. Okay. All right.
Where AI was really thriving in that theoretical space, and then every single chapter from a book that or section from that course, if you wanted to implement it, it was a lifetime project, right?
Okay.
Or maybe more, right? And definitely a PhD dissertation level project, right? By itself, right? So this is great because they are kind of coming back to the knowledge that AI scientists kind of put together into those books and conference proceedings. And now, you know, to your point from previous meetings, now we have those engine that is kind of like a making sense of everything engine, right? That is the LLM, right? So now you can kind of look at this and kind of come up with actually some stuff that works. So if you want a state management, okay, well, let's do state management. How do we do a state management? Well, we create data structures that describe the current state. You know, whether you are kind of a robot and you're sitting by a desk, right? Or whether you are in a software area, you are maybe filtering emails, and you have an email that you need to filter and you are not sure what to do, right? So you describe the state, and then you describe the other states that kind of be the neighbors, and then you decide, you do one more kind of important thing that you need to do with state management, which is what would be the action that would transition you from state A to state B. and then you have maybe state C. So what would be an action to get to state C, right? So if you allow the AI to do this for you, right, define those states, define the transitional actions that get you from here to there, then you have an engine that can make sense of this, because by itself it will not do this for you, right? You have to give it that push with this theoretical framework, and then it's performing really interestingly.
Well, you bring up a lot. I think one thank you for one, because I always think whenever you put a bunch of very lofty goals in your first bulleted, this is just bullet one of this list, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, there that's sort of your gauntlet that you have to go through as an instructor. Like, how would I teach this? How would I get people engaged in it? And since I've already messed up Socratic method, I said, well, at least I teach with Socratic method. I don't want to do any of the work. I would just want to ask questions and have them do it. But then I can be encouraging and hopefully, whatever I do. But okay, so one big, huge breach we mentioned last time, and I want to hold on to this before we get into complaining about the Microsoft study that we're going to complain about, is just it's back to Euclidean stuff, right? When you try to manage state, it like everything else in this, it multiplies, right? Like you can manage simple states. Is this Boolean states? Then you're pretty much in the human realm, right? And I'm certain that there's some good other methods, but to me, I kind of go right into Bayesian stuff, right? Like, when is it worth updating your state, right? States are probably some more confidence interval than they are Booleans. Am I even on the right track with this? It gets really, really complicated really quickly, right? That's my one. And it gets beyond humans. So all you AI researchers, you're right. Your poor brains are hurting probably after the most trivial sort of state management when it comes to dialogues. Like, our dialogue is going to go all over the place, but you're not going to be lost ever, right? You're going to be like, maybe, wait, could you repeat? What was that? But we're just so good at state management as humans. That's what I mean. Like, we're kind of state masters, but we don't ever put any effort into it, right? Hey, I'm going to exercise more is our best model of state management if we'd ever think about it. And then we still blow it off and don't do our exercise or whatever. You see what I mean? Like, we can know how to behave and not do it. Whereas machines, they don't get a choice. And usually it's catastrophic, right? Sooner or later, they just will catastrophically fail and be wrong, right? Because that's the Euclidean way, right? You're going to fail spectacularly, instead
that's
of
the brittleness, right?
Right.
Brittleness problem.
Oh, okay. So I'm not mischaracterizing this, because this is sort of ML versus AI, right? You don't want catastrophic ML failure. That's its magic, right? It shouldn't identify a cat as a dog. We've trained it in 60 billion dog photos or whatever. So we know that even though it's noisy, it should not screw up. And so therefore it will run our drone surveillance machine or whatever. Like, even then you're kind of dicey, but at some point you can trust ML. I think it's probably not bad, because it has very distinct failure scenarios, and it's rare that two Waymos run into each other. You see what I mean? Like, that's not the norm. That's the catastrophic failure.
Well, yeah. So I think the cat and dog kind of example is very easy for the AI now, because these are self-contained, right? Like, you have a picture of a dog and you are looking at the dog, right, and nothing else, and then a cat, right? So the problem here, the categorization or classification is easier. Now the brittleness will come from other things. Let's say we are building an AI system that is answering questions about financial state of the company, right? Some sort of that. And you will ask a question, what's my budget? And I will ask a question, what's my budget, right? And there is going to be like different answers that are really totally incorrect.
Sure.
Right, because your context was different than my context, and if that context was not communicated to the AI is going to do something that people perhaps perhaps hate, because everybody says, oh, so the answer was hallucinated, right? But that might be there might be several things that kind of contributed to the hallucination. One is that the AI had no idea how to answer your question, because it had to pick probabilistically, right, from the
Sure.
Euclidean space of possible answers. So it just picked something, or just picked maybe an average, right? So it was totally wrong. Right now, but the other thing that could happen with the more and more sophisticated systems is that the answer that is going to come back to you is going to be something that you think is incorrect, but the AI actually did a very good calculation and come up with an answer, because maybe it included some sort of a amortization, maybe there is some sort of a recent transaction that the AI was aware of and you did not. So the number that you got is actually correct. You think it was hallucinated, but the AI actually did a great job, kind of like maybe forecasting a situation, or like maybe, in the enterprise system, the AI knew that, oh, there's this contract that is bulletproof because there is this partner that it always follows through and comes through, so I'm going to include that number from that contract that is not not finalized yet into the budget calculation, and I give you that number, right? So you see that this could be kind of a quite exciting time where, now you can say, oh, okay, well, it's hallucination, I'm shutting down the system, or this is not a number I accepted or I anticipated.
Right.
Can you tell me how you got that number? So this is so you see, I mean, this is becoming a really interesting environment for everybody.
Well, and just I agree with you. I think to me, the fascinating part is mental models. I use this other word a lot. We talked about states, states and mental models, and one other make up my whole world of how computers work, right? Like, you have to understand how you think something works, to your point, in order to engage with it. So we'll talk about Microsoft got a ton of data from interactions with Bing from workers, and basically use that to make some predictions about the world of work, the future world of work. We're going to talk about that in a second, because it's fun. But to your point, the mental model is that frame, right? If I ask a question about X, I was just talking about my financial portfolio advice with Claude or whatever. And it was funny because I can just kind of easily go into very obscure slang around options trading, or I can put in a ticker symbol. And what I'm always surprised is, even when the context is a little off, LLMs have a great normalization curve now, or they're just better. They're better at it. And maybe I should ask that, because I do say, okay, ML, very finite and very understood data, parameters. That's what I'm saying. Like, they have to be trained dog. Like, there's nothing trivial about the training, right? Now, once they've got a good dog vector, I guess, right? It's only gonna get incrementally better, Bayesian, right? It's not gonna change what it thinks a dog is anytime quickly, because it's so well trained in some ways, right? Probably even behaviorally. My behavior of my dog, something is it, well, that sounds like a cat. Well, I don't know, but you see what I mean. It probably has a pretty good idea of a lot of the objects in the world, which was one of the first AIs I thought was fun, when the person tried to teach the AI what the world was and how we interact with the world, and how freaking difficult that was to start to chain together things that weren't computer concepts, but they were human concepts, such as I got to walk down the stairs and go to my car to go home, is like such a human thing, but that's easy for us, really hard for a machine until LLMs. So both of the reason we're here is that LLMs broke all of the rules, and my contention is it broke all the rules because it had to add noise, right? This is the weird fun part of it, is I think it's kind of, Markov?
Yeah, Markov models, yeah.
Yeah, so Markov, and by the way, I love anything to do with these stories because most of these, Newton, Markov, or something, we're all trying to win bets. They come up with all this amazing insight only usually because they're pissed off about something. So maybe that says something about me. that until somebody contradicts you, you don't go to the work to create Markov chains, which is that feeling there is no free will. So the story goes, there's some other Russian who's like, we all can make independent choices. We have free will. Everything is sort of like, yes, I will say yes or no or something like that. And Markov is like, you're an idiot. No, we're all intertwined. Every decision depends on every other decision. And you can't, there's no such thing, even though we have the statistical big numbers to show you X. It isn't true because everything is such a chain. And what happens, I think, and maybe I'm making the wrong connection, but it's the noise that you have to introduce to train the signal, right? Because that's the Markov chain. Like there's going to be this certain level of noise surrounding any decision. And if it isn't there, the decisions are too easy and they're usually wrong.
Yeah. I think so.
Okay, but it's not ML. You can't really, you don't want to train it on noise, right? If you said, here's a bunch of random pictures, one of these is a dog, figure it out, that technique would, I assume, fail spectacularly, right? Like with the protein folding, they had to give it really good synthetic data, which seems like an oxymoron to me, because if you're synthesizing data, don't you kind of know what the data is going to, anyway. I know DeepMind, they made a lot of money.
Yeah, I'm not actually, I'm kind of thinking, I mean, there's this saying, garbage in, garbage out, right? Like
Right.
if you have bad data, then you're not going to get good models. But then on the other hand, that issue with noise, that, maybe partial examples, or maybe, kind of like the picture of a cat being kind of blurry, that kind of thing. I think for those architectures that we have right now, where we have like massive numbers of neurons, like multi-billion neuron architectures, I'm not sure if this, if this is still a true statement, that garbage in, garbage out. I think.
Oh, I think it absolutely isn't. That's why we're here. I think we have cracked the universe, actually. I think it's extremely, because diffusion, right? Even a diffusion model has to start with noise and then becomes a cat with a dog doing whatever. But it can't start from blank. And it actually has to reintroduce noise, which gets us back into Markov. I think Markov's the right space we're in, right? Where if you try to go there directly, and this is state management too, right? If you try to just go there directly empirically, what were we saying? Euclidean, like point A to point B, you're going to miss. You're going to have spectacular failures. Whereas if you introduce a lot of paths, that's the Markov chain, where it kind of ends up there, but it's going to kind of go everywhere else, which I think is very natural in some ways, probably more like the way our brains actually work, to say, I didn't remember going up and getting dressed and walking down the stairs and taking a shower. You see what I mean? Like our brains didn't do any of this deliberately. It did it all what we call subconsciously. And subconsciously is a little bit more in the realm of noise, right? It's not intentful. It just is something we're used to doing. But it obviously is helpful that we do not have to spend all of our time thinking about state machines with our own bodies, right? We're just more like, oh, it's around noon, I guess I'll eat. Does anyone ever eat when they're hungry? I don't think that we do, right? Like we're just like, it's that time of day, I guess I'll eat. Or, I just woke up, I will have coffee. It's weirdly, okay, I'm gonna stop because I've already gone off the deep end. Sorry.
Yeah. So let's go back to the concept of a state of state management.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I think it's huge.
It's a data structure, right? That can be explicitly, again, it's just kind of like a system development now kind of approach, right? And from my perspective, right? Like, hey, maybe it's better to have it explicitly. Maybe let's kind of use the old knowledge, old textbook knowledge from AI field, and let's kind of use those data structures explicitly so that during the development we at least can debug the system, right? But
Well,
at the
yes,
same,
and stop,
yeah,
stop. Make that,
yeah,
say that again. That's what the real point is you need to have the little like peek under the hood people, you
yeah,
know, that
yeah,
somebody wants to know why did this work? And my fear is that it is going to be just be noise. Again, it's just going to be a big bunch of floats. Like there's nothing to discover in it, right? Or I guess maybe you can look in models now somehow. They wouldn't make any sense though, right? Because aren't they like looking in your brain and looking for thoughts? Like there's
exactly,
nothing
yeah,
in it, right? It's
yeah,
just a bunch of signals. Be
yeah,
nice
yeah,
if there was stuff in
exactly,
there,
yeah,
you know, car keys and things like that would be great if, you know, hey,
yeah,
there they are. Okay, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, so yes, so in that respect, yeah, I think, I think that these data structures will get transitioned into the neural architectures very rapidly, right? So then, there is not going to be any need for debugging because there will be established models that will be doing that. But we are still not there, and and maybe that would be a suboptimal solution because there is going to be more and more consideration of about the cost of token that is going through a very strong model. So perhaps a more optimal solution will be explicit data structures with paired with relatively small optimized large language models that can kind of manipulate that thing much more efficiently than GPT-5 or GPT-6, where you are paying, like
Right.
$1,000 a day, for
Yeah, I
tokens,
know.
that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm not sure, but I think the optimization battle is going to be huge, and those who use the knowledge, from the machine learning field or AI or knowledge management, fuzzy logic, all these kind of like incredibly developed domains. If
Yeah,
those
right.
people who tapped into those will be able to do the same task much more cheaply than GPT-5 or GPT-6, kind of like
Well, and that's
everything in the
the
box.
whatever the bigger and better, but fuzzy logic always goes down to like Booleans, right? Isn't it just like kind of less failure prone Boolean stuff, right? Like it just, yeah.
No, so the great thing about fuzzy logic is that it's geometrical, because
Oh, okay.
because you have basically distributions to the meaning, right? Like if you want to point to a cat, right?
Hmm.
Maybe the concept of the cat in a fuzzy world is going to be like a trapezoid, like, hey, I kind of think like the middle of the trapezoid is a cat, but then it's kind of going towards kind of sides, oh, maybe there is some tigers in there, and then there is maybe something like that, or there's
Okay.
going to be non-linearity, right? Kind of normal or binomial distributions of the meaning, because the meaning of a budget might have like 20 spikes, and you mean as budget, a budget for your department. I mean as for budget to be my department. The CFO means that it's the whole institution budget. So the concept of the distribution of the meaning is going to be like a very complex curve, and that's where, so what if you have multiple concepts like that, right? You have a cat, but you are not sure 100%, so it's not a yes or no, but you have a distribution, and then somebody talks about, hey, what's the budget for the cat, right? And the budget is this applied to something that is a trapezoid, right? How do you make sense of this? So yeah,
Hmm.
reasoning explicitly about the geometry of the meaning, that is an exciting field.
I do think, yeah, again, the more I get into this wave behavior, because I was just talking about derivatives, right, which is the ultimate in wave behavior, right? It doesn't really make any sense, but it does have narratives, right? There's supposedly a company that supposedly does something that makes money, and then for some reason they have this thing called a stock. Anyway, it's this weird world, but the actual market around this is, like you said, it's kind of not fuzzy logic. It's going to be done on different deltas, and it's basically about volatility, right? And how do you price something in the future, which I think is where I get to in the end, right? Everyone wants to predict the future. Predicting the future is our goal in life for some reason, and yet I look at life being the most unpredictable thing ever. It just so happens that it seems predictable, right? That it feels like it could be predicted, and therefore we do. But really, these are all, like you said, these are just kind of concepts, right? That we impose upon things for whatever reason. I say go with it, enjoy your day, whatever may come, try to have surprises. I'm a Shannon guy, right? So I'm like, no, surprises are great. That's what actually rules why we don't remember taking a shower, which I didn't. Sorry, I'm a little scruffy, but it's surprising things that the only things that make it through. And if you have a new technology or whatever we're going to call Gen AI, it's built for surprises, right? And its noise profiling is necessary to even, because with Shannon you need noise, right? You cannot predict that this left turn will always work in every situation, because I was in my friend's self-driving Tesla, and always when we get into the Tesla, there's always a woman with a baby carriage crossing the street, and I always think like, this must be like the test bed. Do you recognize that this is this is a thing in human life that you want to be really more cautious about? And anyway, it's just funny. But how about this, since we've gone way on, shall we make fun of Microsoft really quick? Because the other point is we're trying to apparently get rid of all these jobs. So I'm personally stunned and always really skeptical of this, because, as at least in my whole experience, adopting breakthrough computer use in companies is a complete oxymoron. Like, they don't, right? Like, people put up with computing, I think, in the workforce. It sounds about right. Like, they might turn it on and have it work properly in many respects. And I come from SaaS, which I'll just say that helped a lot, because at least usually you'd have to deal with very archaic Microsoft Office or something or whatever, right? Like, there would be this world that you would have to conform to in order to use a computer. And then SaaS made it a little bit easier, but not too much easy. Going back to, I think, this topic of what would you, if you were in a company and it knew how your company worked and you needed to ask it questions, the first question you would ask is, am I being paid properly? And would it know? Right? Like, would it know salaries? But when you go to the federal government, it knows everyone's salary, right? Like, it knows everything about everybody. But yet when you file your taxes, what do? We have to tell it what we did, right? It won't come forth to say, I know all this already. You see what I mean? We've always played this sort of dumb game where, well, what does it know and what doesn't it know? So what happened is they took a bunch of people who were using Bing, I guess, at work. They understood the person's job. They understood the conversations that it was having. And I think they did something like 200,000 conversations. So good data set. I'm not faulting it. I'm really happy. In fact, I anonymized, which is great, right? It's not trying to call anyone out, which is good. What else did it do? Okay, so here it is. It's going to analyze this. And what is the goal? Well, you're Microsoft and you're Bing. So I'm assuming you're going to be fairly pro Microsoft. But what I've noticed with every news article that I've been reading lately is this rampant, we're cutting all these jobs and replacing them with AI, right? I see this article or this sentiment or something being said pretty much daily, of which I'm like, huh? Like, you and I've been using this technology for the past 2 years, pretty much nonstop, and I don't think of it as being able to replace anything, right? Like, I can understand replacement in terms of it's really, really profitable to fire people, right? It's an immediate boost on your bottom line. And as far as I know, that's great, right? For all the CFOs out there saying, hey, we're not raking it in like we used to. Let's do this. But I don't believe, and I'm not sure that any area particularly has been what I consider optimized for AI, right? I mean, if and I was just on a person having a call with a financial analyst the other day, and it was a person, right? And person basically saying, well, here's how you use the website, which seems to be always the thing that you have to do when you're on the phone, that they tell you where on the website to go. I don't know. I find it amusing, since my job usually is trying to make intuitive websites, that most customer service explains websites. Sorry, guys, it's funny to me. But secondly, it was like, oh no, it doesn't do that. Right? It was like a Venn diagram thing. Like, no, you won't get this kind of thing that you want. You'll get this other thing you don't want, because that's the way the computer works.
Hmm.
So could you replace that person with AI? I was like, boy, that would be rough just starting, right? Because the kind of questions aren't necessarily empirically answerable. And I'm not saying AI or generative AI, I couldn't say something, right? But I think it wouldn't know the mental model of the people that are calling that well. I would think it would need to be trained really well on people's mental. Why do you call would be question number one.
Hmm.
you know and if you're my mom, it's because she doesn't go online for anything. Anyway, I'm over explaining, but I think the maybe the through line here is that they looked at this from a particular lens, which is these people are all using Bing to do their jobs. What do you think? I know that was a lot. I'm sorry to ramble.
Yeah, well, so if we are talking about the AI, and I know that you like to kind of look much more deeply at the job function, right? Like the whole environment, right? And I kind of tend to think in terms of the surface phenomena, right? So if I am on the call, I usually don't have too many opportunities to call anybody, except maybe, like if my network service is down, right? And then I call the whatever, Xfinity or whatever, and I tell them, hey, I don't have a service, right? And then 99% of cases, they're gonna say, oh, did you reboot, right? So that's always the first one. And then, oh yes, I rebooted. Do you have service? No, I don't. Okay, so we will ping you. We will send the signal, right?
Okay.
And let's say if this conversation happens to 99% of people and resolves 99% of cases, right? Then this is an easy job to replace with
Easy.
AI.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely. Right. Yeah.
But then there's harder things, right? Like, for example, let's say in journalism, right? Like you have a person that is writing like a piece and is analyzing something, right? So you have the human touch, you have the background, you have maybe somebody's passion goes into text, and then you have the AI that perhaps can write an interesting piece, right? But is it going to be the same thing? Is it gonna be the same kind of social impact? Maybe the person who's writing the piece for a newspaper or a journal has a lot of pride in their work, pride in
Sure.
their craft, and they've been honing it for decades. There's talk, in the European Union, they have like this legion of translators that are translating the laws that AI is, I mean, the European Union is producing, and they have to all be translated into so many different languages, and AI
Right.
is going to be replacing those very, very rapidly. So yeah, so I'm not sure. The surface phenomena, in a lot of cases, AI can produce a very appealing surface phenomena,
Hmm.
but is it the same thing? Is it the real thing? Then I think this is something that you have a lot
Yeah.
more kind of like multidimensional view.
Well, I think we're in between, because, as you said, there's sort of there's just these great use cases, like you just said, yeah, that kind of translation, and probably this would be in terms of oh God, what would we call it? Like dumb translation. You know what I mean? This is not intent to communicate as much as it is codifying some sort of law or procedure. You know what I mean? It's like legalese. Like if you or I had to read a contract, it would probably not suit us after a minute or two. And in fact, by the way, a research paper, because I just wrote 3 research papers, but I had lots of help doing it because the format is so foreign to me, right? Like I'm never sure, like, what tone should I have? Should I be interesting? You know, how quickly do I have to put in a math problem to make this sound? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, am I communicating to a person who cares? Am I trying to win someone over? I mean, these to me are what are not true of legal documents. Like, they don't care, right? Like, a terms and condition doesn't care if you read it, you know? Except for that one time where they put in, if you read this, we'll give you $10,000. Like, that was the one where someone actually did read it and got the $10,000. But rare, right? Like that there be a point to it. Because we just assume that it doesn't have anything to do with us personally, right? It's a cultural thing, and I think, and let me just tear this down a little bit, where they talked about the the goal of your job compared to your Bing usage, right? So they kind of have this very general, getting information seemed to be a big topic, right? Like, I just want to know something. That they didn't say is really part of your, because it classified your user goals. By the way, it also classified what work is, which apparently is a government thing, which, talk about a wacky taxonomy that is, right? Like, I'm moving things from here to there. That's part of what work is, right? Like, it actually breaks down working into a set of actions. This is the government, because I'm assuming at some point or another, you have to classify your workforce's what the work is for some report, like all our salaries, that somehow becomes a number that comes out every June. You see what I mean? Like, all of this is a derivative to some sort of report that we've lived off of for all of our lives, but it's all a derivative report that gets clustered so badly. The so what, right? You see what I mean? But here they're using it very empirically. Like, oh yeah, your job is to communicate with people outside the organization. Your job is to document or record information. And I'm just going to read between the lines, because what they did is say that everyone was using Bing for work, which, have you ever worked before, you guys? Like, people don't. I made the joke, it's like solitaire. Like, if they didn't have solitaire on computers, people would go out of their minds with boredom, right? That's the whole point of solitaire. And now that you have the internet, it's to keep people from being bored. So you can't just say, okay, some big one, obtain info about goods or services. You're shopping, right? Like, that's what you would do, which is great. You would, another one was something about uh, diet and exercise planning. Another was financial planning. So it was really interesting, I thought, and I can probably break this down better, and I'm going to try to write a little bit about it, is there is actually a little bit of a trust factor that people don't have with real life, right? Like, I don't call a financial planner that often because I don't trust them. I don't trust advertisers, right? If I was to search on Google, but I do that in LLMs now, because I kind of perceive, my mental model is I perceive LLMs as being less gamey.
Yeah, and you don't have to give them 4%, of your profit, right?
Well, that's what I mean. There's no financial incentive yet. Yet. And so therefore there are some, and health stuff as well. And these were all extremely popular uses of LLMs. I think what was interesting is they kind of go into a much more direct, right, here's number one, research healthcare issues, interpret language or religious information, purchase goods and services. One good one was explain to others work procedures, which I thought was the best one, because then I'm like, I'm tired of explaining how to have Jack reset his Comcast thing every time. I'm just going to have GPT do it and send it to him. Which honestly, great
Exactly.
use of an LLM, right? I am sick of explaining this and I don't want to get involved. So here's the procedural, right? Really, that was smart people on that one. But all of this seemed ancillary to work until I got to their conclusions, which is replaceability. So apparently they kind of go directly into, well, who can be replaced? And I thought, did you make it down here to the end of like, did you see who apparently cannot be replaced by LLMs?
I don't remember.
It's particularly sad, because number one apparently is a phlebotomist. And I'm like, yeah, of course. Like you're sticking a needle into very not happy people. You want and having met many good phlebotomists in my day, great job, phlebotomy, right? Like that's hard. That is a extremely challenging job, right? Look, we're going to give it to you. Followed quickly by nursing assistants, right? Here's another one, extremely challenging emotional job. And what I mean is, I think this thematically is where we have to discard the tech bro universe, because I know they're emotionally stunted by nature, right? Zuckerberg is not Mr. Warmth or anything, nor are any of them particularly, right? They all lived in this very gratifying culture that rewarded their every whatever. And computers, which of course only are nice to you. But when it comes to actual people, like it is very emotionally draining, most work, right? And I think that when you say, well, I can replace you with AI, are you saying that you have no emotional component to your job? And if so, then maybe good, right? We'll get a robot to pick that thing up and put it over there, right? It's not an emotional job to get stuff from here to there. But it is, I worked with trucking, it is an emotional job to deliver things in a truck, right? Because it isn't hard, but it is about expectations. We're expecting things. We're expecting things not to be broken. We're expecting you to not have an accident. Like it's more about the quality of the what would you call it? The goals. The goal quality is what people invest their emotion in. It's why they like doing the job. I'll drive to get your thing from here to there if emotionally I feel it's worth it to help you out. So good for truckers. Hi, truckers, everybody.
Yeah.
But I'm also going on tangent. But do you understand? Like they kind of took emotion out of it, except for the irreplaceable, which are all, sorry, really terrible jobs. Embalmers, hazardous material waste removers. This is what Microsoft says are safe. So this is what we should be all going to school to learn. I say in humor.
Yeah. So this analysis doesn't seem like, first, it's particularly up to date, right? Because it kind of goes not really into any depth for the areas that are being created by the new economists, right? I mean, it's really like how about people who are building conversational models for large language models, like people who can create those emphatic emotional models that can kind of make the LLMs kind of interact with you kind of pretty much like an empathic person would be interacting at the doctor's office with somebody who's getting like a difficult diagnosis, right? And you need that nursing assistant to kind of talk to you and be on the human level, and kind of like deal with that terrible problem, where people might be scared, people might be emotional, and you want to replace that job. I mean, that whole thing shows me that it's really kind of like Mark Zuckerberg, or a VC capitalist kind of study, where we are kind of looking at some numbers and really not taking into account anything. I mean, even an LLM if you ask this question, would have a little bit more heart than
Yes.
that list. so
I agree, and they never do make they're talking about Bing, which is OpenAI, and you're right. I'm not sure exactly what time. I mean, this did come out yesterday, right? So this isn't that old. But it is, I think it's telling a tale, because we're hearing on one side, okay, rampant job replacement, and I'm like, huh? Like, again, it's very hard. I would say in my own goal would be, it would be great to train an LLM to do the teaching job that I should do. But now I know how much of a context window I'd have to provide for it to do my job, because I don't have a hard time doing it. You know what I mean? Things that are easy and automatic for me are not easy and automatic for this fun little bit of math, right? It has to guess, get positive and negative feedback, learn, adjust. And that's why now I'm like, I can go on and on about whatever, but I've also trained it who I am over months of what kind of things I respond to. Months, I mean, quite a long time. And for at least some of these little, what do they call them, little profile windows or something, like right now you go into something and you probably trained it to ignore you, right? Like I want to know what somebody would really get, so I don't want it to just tell me what I want to hear, right? I want it to, like you said, hey, what's my salary? Well, it'd be like, oh wait, are you CEO, Fred so and so? You know what I mean? Like, I would give you this answer. If you are X, I would give you this answer, which is completely reasonable, right? That's what we'd expect a human to do, to judge it as a question that they would answer.
Yeah.
So again, they're kind of just going into these low-hanging fruits. They're just saying like, hey, interpreters and translator, you're number one on the list of losing your job. But I kind of say, well, do you understand what they do, right? Like if they are doing, like you said, I think you'd still need them, because these are governmental things. Like you really don't want to, you might get augmented and proofed by somebody. And I'm like, fine, right? Does that mean you'll do 10 times more work? Well, yeah, right. 10 times more law. Apparently that does not seem to be a problem, right? To have 500-page laws.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who writes all this stuff, right? It isn't LLMs, should be, but I don't know how.
Apparently nowadays, maybe, yeah.
Well, but that's funny in some ways, because is that a job? Someone's writing legal documents? Sure, of course, right? But are you replaceable? Sure, but you still need to sort of be in the loop. And we'll get into that probably next time, which is going to be the plateauing, right? Like we'll all be reviewers, we'll all be editors at some point, right? But then it says historians. Number 2, historians apparently are out of business. And I'm like, again, do you know what historians do? It isn't to give you facts about history. Right? But then it really picks on sales representatives. And again, I'm like, do you know what salespeople do? They don't sell you things. You see what I mean? Like it's like all the complexity gets sucked out of this. Writers and authors easily replaced by AI. Customer service representatives, CNC tool programmers. Sorry, no, I've programmed CNCs. It's really hard. But as I said, do you want it to be completely automated? Of course not, because it's going to break all of your dies. And they are really costly when you do it wrong, and I learned the hard way. I've broken many a bit because I wasn't very good at it, and by the way, all of the machines are different. That's another fun thing. Talk about not computers, right? We're just like, I'll just whip up a Python program is not something you can do in CNC world, right? It all has, okay, sorry. Anyway, I'm not impressed. Sorry, Jack, to bring up this much. I'm not buying the hype either. I just don't see how you're massively getting rid of all your salespeople. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because to your point, right? Sales is not about selling, right? Sales is about building relationships between you and your clients and the companies, and creating a relationship with the product and product management. So yeah, it's these kind of things are, I don't know, maybe they just put it into a like ChatGPT version 3 and kind of got it, because it seems to be like even more shallow than necessary as an analysis. And then really what I felt was lacking is the opportunities for the new jobs, that
Right. Well,
really
that's a,
like,
yeah.
like talking about agents, right? Like in the programming world, how do we manage multiple agents, and their interactions, and the hundreds of tools that they might be accessing, right? I mean, that by itself, that would be like a new layer of complexity to systems. And yeah, I'm not sure what to think about those, but maybe.
I think it's a green light for people who don't care to do dumb things. That's
Maybe.
my fear. It's hey, I read it, this is the inevitable. Let's just go for it and see what, as I said, I hope that's not the case, but we've both seen it to be the case that quick, semi cost saving, short-term decisions tend to be really much more favorably assessed sometimes than they should be. That, oh, right, like, but that's the thing. You can break things, but fixing them is hard, right? Like breaking things not hard, human, we all make mistakes, right? But repairing can often be harder. And I also really feel for students, right? I think there's, like you said, I think there's great opportunities way beyond some of this stuff that we were just reading, right? Because if you were trying to make an AI agent, I think one thing is they had the word effective. Great, yes. Effective AI. What's effective?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This
Mhm.
becomes a real thing for me because I work in a very qualitative world. People can come in and not see the big link and, whatever, right? And that's my bad. They missed it. I didn't make it obvious how to complete their task. I didn't help them flow through to their goals. Bad design. But as we said, because there's now so many different avenues, right? Effectiveness becomes very hard to measure because, like, back to my truckers, they were like, well, I can never use this interface, but I can use this interface or something. But they didn't think of it like that. They're like, this isn't a computer, that's a computer. And I think
Yeah.
that's half or more than half the people mental model, right? Computers, hard, annoying. Phones, they're not computers, and they're sort of better because it's like, oh yeah, we developed a whole design language around these, right? Like that's why. This other thing is just this crazy world that we built over 30 years, this and that, right? Anyway.
Yeah. Well, but there is also the other side of the coin, right? Like there is really people that maybe don't pay too much attention to their jobs, right? Like,
Oh, of course.
so that is something that is really a problem, right? For an organization where, let's say, they have to make payroll, right? So an enterprise might be this kind of like a evil concept, right? But at the end of the day, they have to make payroll, and there's constraints, and if you have workforce that perhaps is hates the job, right? They don't care. They just want to show up, and do shopping on the computer, maybe because they are escaping the job, not because they need to relax, because they put in like 6 hours of highly strenuous mental effort, and they really need to kind of have a breather, right, and kind of get their mind to do something else. But I'm thinking about people who really maybe don't care. Then yeah, that also needs to. That's a problem, right? Yeah,
I think you're right, and I'm going to go all the way and maybe again for next time, because we love it, is the same thing with students. You see what I mean? I'm lucky enough, I have grad students that are hopefully motivated, right? But at some point or another, somebody fails math or they whatever in school. And right now I keep thinking like, is it the student's fault or is it the system's fault? And it's probably both. There's no, or let's just say there's no fault, right? But we know that failure compounds, I would hope, right? That if you had like my wife, bad in math class, sorry, wife, but also made her very vulnerable because she didn't have a good teacher or she didn't get engaged into the topic for some reason. So that's what I keep thinking is like, well, should we up our game? Is that what we're saying is the future? And then I'm like, great, yeah, humans, we're really good at stuff like you said, if we get enough motivation, we'll truck this thing from here to there. We're amazing. We're phlebotomists, for God's sake. What a hard job, right? Infants taking blood. You see what I mean? Like these are things where we're so good at what seems almost impossible to do.
Yeah.
So let's not get fooled by the fact that some things, I can get a robot to take this thing from here to there, right? But it doesn't have to know why. Whereas people do, they need to know why. Why am I doing this job, right? And like you said, it can be very dismotivating, of course, but it could be an opportunity, right? If you did more why. There you go. Seems like a good enough ending, right? Profound. More whys. We need more whys.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, that was good. Yeah, I mean the topic is so huge.
It is, as always. We'll see you guys at our inaugural. We'll figure it out, or whatever. We'll figure it out. Talk on agentic AI, which God knows I might have to outline this one. Ugh, okay.
Yeah. Well, remember only three things. That we discuss more than three.
Complain about Microsoft. Understand the world of work, and what else did we tackle? Noise and Bayesian mathematics, and you can always fit an extra one in there, one or two.
All right.
Future of education. Okay. All right. All right, Jack. Until next time.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. See you.
Cheers.